Oh, hey, Candace and Anna and Marilyn. I'm so glad you're here. I'm back. I feel like I've been gone forever. I always think that's the sign that you really got a good like break, when you feel like, oh, wow, and you don't need a vacation from your vacation. I'm so happy to be back with all of you, especially now, right? Especially now as we continue to grapple with, the uncertainty of our conditions and seek to connect to an inherent sense of aliveness and peace and wholeness that is available to us regardless of circumstances or conditions. And what a blessing and what a relief, especially now, to hear that. So today's theme is taking refuge. And we're going to talk about taking true refuge. So we'll unpack the difference between true refuge and false refuge. I am the true refuge is coined by Tara Brach in her book, True Refuge. So some of what, not a lot actually, some of what I'm sharing is from this book. But I also want to acknowledge that she's the one that's talked about true refuge and unhooking from false refuge. And we'll talk, like I said, more about that. But before we do, hi, Stephanie. Are you there? We have a small group today, which is awesome. Some of you are on camera, some of you are off. Could you just pop into the chat? Like, how are you doing? Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for putting yourself on video. Yeah. Just let me know, like, how are you doing? Where are you at? What's your experience in this moment? And what is your intention? What is it that you'd most like to feel or receive from our time together? As we dive into true refuge. Reassurance, backup, peace, clarity. Yes. Yes to all of that, Stephanie. Yeah, good. You're in the right place. Happy to see you, Candace. Happy to have you here. Yeah, good. Yeah, good to have you here, Anna. Awesome. That gives me a pulse. Like it allows me to sense like where you're at, which is such an important piece of how I deliver the content of the talk. So our talk will be about 30 minutes as usual, and then we will sit together for about 25 to 20 minutes. And I do encourage all of us or you to stay for the whole time unless you absolutely can't. These are all recorded usually and put on my YouTube page, which is under Karina Nickerson. So you can find all these meditations recorded there. My weekly meditations are all housed there. So feel free to go back and rewatch any of those that speak to you. True refuge. Yeah. And, it reminds me of something that like Stephanie had mentioned when she said reassurance. Because something that is easy for us that we need reassurance around. Hi, Melissa. I love your space. Yeah. Something that we get to have like that we need reassurance around is nothing's missing. Like there's nothing you don't have that you need to be your radiant self. And the radiant self isn't void of emotion or like sadness or whatever, or anxiety. All that is experienced when we're in touch with the radiant self, but there's a lot more space when we're connected to the radiant self or Buddha nature or the true self. And so I'm going to start with this poem by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's actually, let me say this first before I read this. It's the belief that there's something missing, and you can kind of sense in your own heart mind like how that is might be showing up for you. That has us seek false refuge. Oh, something's missing, something's not quite right with me or with my life, and I gotta do something about it. If I get this, if I go here, if I do that, if I lose weight, if I gain weight, if I get more money, if I have the right partner, if I have the right home, and all that stuff matters. I'm not saying that, all that stuff isn't important, but it ain't a refuge. It isn't a refuge. And a lot of us don't even really feel like what a refuge is in our body because we've had developmental trauma. And so connecting to a sense of true refuge in the body, we're all just babies at this, so just give yourself a lot of grace and give yourself a lot of compassion, kindness, and we'll talk more about that as we dive into true refuge. Because when we get good at connecting to true refuge, our tendency to utilize false refuge, which over time is harmful, at the very least, it's just not satisfying. It doesn't get the job done, so to speak, tends to sort of fall away, right? So we don't have to focus so much on the false refuge, right? Like one of my false refuges, was alcohol, drinking alcohol. And I'm a non-drinker now because it just doesn't, there's a lot of reasons for that. And that's another talk. And there's videos on it on YouTube and stuff like that. But that's an example, and it's kind of an extreme example of a false refuge, the way I used to use it, right? And so I'm trying to feel better, take the edge off, so to speak. And there's nothing wrong with taking the edge off. We just want to sense is the way I'm taking the edge off creating long-term benefit? Or is the way I'm taking the edge off right now going to create problem for me? Is there consequence? Is it harmful over time? Because with all false refuges, initially they're not. Initially they feel great. That's why we have them. That's why we utilize them. And so this is all about getting free from that and starting to take true refuge so that we can really feel satisfied and nourished, which is what we're all wanting anyway. Okay. And it's not going to happen through your berating yourself or judging yourself for the false refuges that you take. When I was a drinker and I was drinking a lot, that's very, right, depending on who you talk to. Let's just say most people could agree it was too much. It was ruining my life and it was ruining my relationships with my family. And my way out of that was not to, again, beat myself up for that false refuge. I was actually in focusing more on creating true refuge. And in that process, I just, it's still like this for me. I don't want to drink. I look at a glass of wine and I know exactly what it does to me and how I act and where it'll go. And I love myself too much to do that. Right? I just do. And so that's how this works. We're just going to focus on creating true refuge and talk more about that. Now I'm going to get back to the poem. This is called The Good News, and it's by Thich Nhat Hanh. The good news they do not print. The good news we do print. We do print. We have a special edition every moment, and we need you to read it. The good news is that you are alive. And the linden tree is still there, standing firm in the harsh winter. The good news is that you have wonderful eyes to touch the blue sky. The good news is that your child is there before you and your arms are available. Hugging is possible. They only print what is wrong. Look at each of our special editions. We always offer the things that are not wrong. We want you to benefit from them and help protect them. The dandelion is there by the sidewalk, smiling its wondrous smile, singing the song of eternity. Listen. You have ears that can hear it. Bow your head. Listen to it. Leave behind the world of sorrow, of preoccupation, and get free. The latest good news, listen to this, the latest good news is that you can do it. You can do it. That's such an important piece. We all in this moment, just sense it in your body right now. Like, sense you get to choose a confidence in your capacity to do this. And that's so important. And it's something we have to connect to because it's so easily forgotten, right? We need reassurance in this area. We all do. And so right now is your time to just sense like, I can do it, right? I can do this. True refuge is possible and available to me. We have to sense that that is for us. For us. So right now there's kind of a sense of that, like a choice for that. And now we can talk a little bit. I think I've explained the difference a little bit between true refuge and false refuge, right? Basically, false refuge does not get the job done. Meaning, life is messy, right? The dog barks. Fifi. That's such a whatever. Life is messy. The dog barks in the middle of my Dharma talk, right? Big deal. But there's other things going on, right? COVID, what's going to happen? I mean, it's so interesting what the mind does with the information. We don't really know where we're going, but one of the ways that we take false refuge is to try to anticipate what could go wrong. And that's actually, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But we want to be mindful of it, meaning we want to be aware of the way the mind flitters and flicks and gets sucked in and drawn to fearful thinking, especially in this kind of situation where we don't really, it's so, it's so unsettling in so many ways for people, right? And it may be for you at times, like it has been for me. And so we might think that, okay, well, when COVID just goes fucking away, then I'll be happy. Everything will be fine. That's false refuge. COVID going away ain't gonna do it. It's not gonna solve the problem of that nagging sense of dissatisfaction that all human beings have. Well, I think most human beings have this. The Buddha called it dukkha, the primary dissatisfaction of life, that there's beauty, but there's also problem. We are alive, but we will die. There is death and rebirth. There's, and so it's this is part of what we're in. It's the soup that we're in. Dukkha is here. And if we buy into the false belief that there's anything that can solve by taking it away, the messiness of ourselves and of our lives, then we're gonna, use false refuges to improve ourselves, to improve our lives, which there's nothing wrong with that as long as we get that that's not where it's at. That our true sense of satisfaction and happiness and wholeness will not come from that external thing. One of my teachers, Matthew Brunsilver, who I've talked about a lot because I've been studying with him so much lately. He's fabulous. Check him out. He's a neuropsychologist and a Buddhist practitioner and just freaking He's not for everyone, but he's pretty geeky, but amazing and funny and awesome. And he talks about, he's a very, popular teacher. And something that really struck me was someone was asking him about like, we were talking about like leadership, right? Because it was a course in Buddhist psychology. It was for therapists and coaches and stuff. So it was like we were talking about leadership in this context and power. That's right. We were talking about leadership and power. And he said, the thought of being like, the top of some like spiritual organization, like say he was an abbot of some Buddhist center, or he got, I don't know. He was like, I know that that's not it. Like that might be something I move towards, but I know deep in my core, but that's not going to satisfy me deeply. And I thought that was powerful because that's such a false refuge, right? Power. Let me, we get promoted, we move up in a company, we build a business, and things like that. And that's all wonderful. But if we get confused and we think that we're going to get happy, that our source of happiness comes from that, we suffer. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the purity trap. The purity trap. And I think a lot of us spiritual folks fall into this. We think that to be whole, we need to be perfect, free from selfishness, aggression, and insecurity. We think that in order to be happy, we need not, we have to get rid of it. I can't be selfish. I can't be aggressive. I can't be insecure. Okay. And that the purity is not it. Purity is a false refuge, right? Because again, life is inherently messy. It's like there's shit. There's also like literally shit, like waste, right? It's gross. But then there's sunsets and dogs and mountains, right? And love and all this amazingness. And we forget about that because we get hyper focused on the dukkha as if we could get rid of it. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. It's all about the way that we relate to that which we find unpleasant, or to that which we find unpleasant. There's nothing wrong with us for experiencing things as unpleasant, but we want to know when something is unpleasant that that's what we're experiencing, so that we're not hooked by it, by preference, right? Like, we don't want to be hooked by the, it's like a bondage to constantly feel good. Just let that shit go. You can't possibly always feel good. But guess what? You'll feel a lot better when you stop trying to feel better. It's such a funny thing. I hope this is making sense. I wanted to talk too about doubt as a hindrance, which I've talked about explicitly in another Dharma talk. So go on YouTube and check out my Dharma talk on doubt if you want more on this. But doubt hindrances are things like, I'm never going to change. I'm not cut out for spiritual practice. Healing and freedom aren't really possible. So when we start to take true refuge in our practices of presence, this is a true refuge. I'm going to talk right now about the three aspects of true refuge. Doubt comes up, right? I'm not cut out for spiritual practice. Healing and freedom aren't really possible. I totally have that come up. That's like that's a doubt obstacle that comes up for me for sure. So let's talk now about the three aspects of true refuge. The first part of true refuge is something I've mentioned through this talk a little bit, but I'm going to talk about it explicitly now. We want to brighten our awareness. Okay, so I want you to think about your awareness. you can't look for the magic in awareness, but there's something magical about it. There's something really nourishing about cultivating present moment awareness. So we want to have practices that brighten that, like that there's an awareness that you know, for example, like my sister, you know, I love my sister. My sister's fucking awesome. She's incredible. And her husband took her on a surprise like weekend excursion and called me up and was like, "Hey, will you take the kids?" Because they have two kids that are like our age. And I'm like, "Sure," but I'm like, I want to go on a secret surprise trip with, you know, what's like Myron, my husband, like he never does that for me. Right. And so I noticed I was feeling jealous. I was jealous. If I just went with that, right? If I just went with that, poor Myron. I caught it though. I was like, oh, I'm jealous right now. Okay. All right. What does jealousy feel like in my body? This is brightening awareness. And using rain, right? Recognize I'm jealous. Where do I feel it in my body and my heart and my stomach? What thoughts am I believing? My husband isn't as great as her husband or something like that, right? And then N is nurture. So it's like, okay, and then with compassion, I'm asking myself, okay, like what need is this pointing to that I could express, right? So that's how jealousy, you know, if we're jealous, we can like sense like, okay, what am I missing? Or what am I wanting here? Like, you know, how could I satisfy a need here that this jealousy is reflecting? So I told my husband, I said, I would love it if you took me away. You know, I would love it if you took me away. And he did. Isn't that cool? So the power of communication and expressing your needs, right? He surprised me. We went to see Ziggy Marley on Sunday night, and he booked us a hotel room so we wouldn't have to like drive and deal with parking and all of that, and we could have like just even more fun together. And he surprised me on the drive there. Like, that was pretty cool. The second ingredient we need for true refuge, and remember, true refuge is a place inside of you that you can sense there's a peace and a safety available that is beyond circumstances or conditions. Part of connecting to that requires compassion. Compassion is more than kindness, as we've talked about. So compassion is the recognition that, man, this is hard, right? Like, wow, this is hard, right? When mask mandate came back indoors, right? Did you go through the whole, maybe you didn't, but I went through the whole, oh my God, what's going to happen? Oh my God, no. It's, you know, did you do that? I totally spiraled out a little bit in my head. And it's like, compassion, man, this is hard. Like, we're really going fucking through it right now. You know, like stop, start. It is emotionally exhausting. And we have to have, we have to acknowledge that, or we'll be more exhausted, right? If we're just white knuckling through it and pushing through, we'll just be more exhausted. Just the acknowledgement of it tends to be a relief, right? That's compassion. Like, oh, honey, this is hard. And then like, oh God, it's hard for all of us. You know, so sensing that we're all in this together. And then the third piece is the backward step. So let's really talk about awareness as refuge. And that is the backward step. I am going to take my attention off of all of these details. I'm going to take my attention off of all of these details. And I'm going to come back here, inside my own heart and my own body and my own mind. And I'm going to be with it in that way. I'm going to bring my attention into my body, bring it to my breath, and start to sense what's really going on in here. And that's a step most of us skip. I mean, that's the step most of us skip, and it's created a lot of suffering in our world. As my teacher says, this is the hope of the world, you know? And I'm like, you're right. This practice is the hope of the world because you always have it no matter what's happening. And you start to sense there is a well within you that is reliable and trustworthy. And it requires taking the backward step, coming back into the body, taking the attention off of all of the myriad conditions that are unpleasant to you that you're trying to control and change. Come back to yourself. Rest and awareness. And as we take refuge and awareness, it doesn't mean we become inactive at all. It doesn't mean we don't ask for what we need. It doesn't mean that we don't do things to change what's not working at all. But we're coming from a very different place. We're coming from a very different place when whatever that thing is isn't hooked with our happiness, right? Like, I hope that makes sense. Let's pause here before we sit. So I just went over 3 points of true refuge. First, we want to brighten awareness. And as we do that, like what's really happening now, you can almost sense that in yourself right now. What's really happening inside you right now. And then compassion, which is just a recognition of like, oh, this is hard. May I be at peace. You know, that's compassion. And then number 3 is as taking that backward step and learning, you know, to trust awareness as a refuge. That's important. We're learning to trust awareness as a refuge. And for many of us, like I said at the very beginning, we're learning to take refuge for the first time. Like we're learning about what refuge feels like and what it means. And you're never too old to learn this, which is really good news. Take a breath. Let's all take a breath together. We're about to transition to our sit, where we're going to contact a sense of true refuge together. Before we do that, I'd love for you to just like mention in the chat what spoke to you from all of that stuff I said, which I'm always like, you know, I hope you got something. I got my notes, you know, but I never know what you actually get. So I hope you got something from this talk. I hope you found it of value and that it spoke to you in some way. But yeah, please let me know in the chat what's resonating for you, or thoughts that you have, or anything like that. Also, I like to mention that these talks are offered by donation, so your donations really make a difference. And you can Venmo, PayPal, or Zelle me. I'm on all the things. I'm drinking matcha tea this morning. It's got a little green to it. The topic overall, bringing awareness to refuge and what is false refuges, feeling like refugee was outside of myself. Yeah. Oh, I let, yeah, right? Huh, yeah, I hadn't, that's true. Melissa, that's how it feels. We feel so lost. We feel so lost. But part of taking true refuge is learning to really trust awareness. Anyone else? Wow, compassion awareness is the right. Oh, it sounds like an aha, Anna. Yeah, good, Marilyn. I know I just said that, but I'm like, I think that's probably the most meaty part of the talk is we're learning to trust awareness as refuge, not critical awareness, compassionate awareness. Now, your default awareness mode for most folks is critical, and so compassion is it's not hard work. It's not like work that we usually think about. It does take intention. It's not our for most of us, it's not our go-to. Compassion is not our go-to. Everything you're saying is true. Okay, thanks. Good, Candace. Come back to the body. Yeah, yeah, Steph. Been so busy. Why false? Right? Mm-hmm. I always like the reminders to learn what it feels like. Yeah, good. We can't rely on being okay when this goes away. We need to come to ourselves and our bodies for true refuge. I mean, we all had shit that wasn't right before the pandemic. Do you remember that? You don't remember what it was? You don't remember what it was. I don't either. But we had problems, right? Because that's what the mind, that's what the brain, it's a survival mechanism. We really need to understand that about the brain, the negativity bias. It's like, gonna do that. I used to work in leisure world. I was in banking when I was in college, and leisure world is the retirement community. So we served 99% senior citizens. A lot of them are, they're all retired. I would think, what problems could you possibly have? But man, they had them. I'd have ladies come. I remember this lady coming in and she's like, can't eat. She can't eat. She's so stressed out. I was a new account. So sometimes they would come and sit with me and I would we would just talk, right? They would, whatever. She was having a new carpet put in, right? And she was telling me it was stressing her out so much she couldn't eat. So it's kind of like that, right? It's kind of like that. It's like, you don't have to suffer. We don't have to suffer. But it does require us to trust in the not suffering, right? Because a lot of us are very addicted to our worry. We're very addicted to our strategies. Worry is a false refuge. God, can I really just rest in awareness and not have to manage and control everything? Yes, you can. And let's do it together. All right. So find your comfortable seat. Someone used my, this is when you have kids, right? Here's my bell pad. Got used as a pin cushion. All right. Both feet on the floor if you're on a chair. If you're on the ground, you can just set yourself up in a comfortable seated posture. Or you can lie down. Do your best not to fall asleep if you're choosing to lie down. If you're sitting up, come into a straight, just sense your back. Feel your backbone. And then feel the wind of the breath sort of caressing the backbone. Good. Inhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale, mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breath is natural now. There's a soothing quality to the breath, a supportive, soothing quality. Sense that you are taking refuge inside your breath. You don't have to sort anything out right now. You don't have to manage or control anything right now. There's no thought that needs thinking right now, that needs attention right now. Take refuge inside your breath. Sensing where your breath is in your body. Soften your belly a little bit more. Sense the breath sort of expanding the whole front of you. If your feet on the floor, you might feel your feet on the floor. Feel your body from the inside out. Tingles, buzzing, pulsing, the lava lamp of experience in the body. Mingled with the breath is a refuge. Your body is so full of miraculous wisdom, really, beating your heart, orchestrating so much to just keep everything working. Your body is a refuge. And the thinking mind, with all of its stories and narratives and concerns and excitements, it's flittering here and there. Let your thinking mind sort of find refuge in your breath, in your body. Bringing compassion, really just like kindness, tenderness to any ways in which the mind, the mental landscape might be agitated. You don't have to do anything about agitation, mental agitation, but notice it. And just letting it fold back into the breath. Let it take refuge in the breath. You might, even if you wander away from a sense of refuge, when the landscape starts to feel dry or brittle, the inner landscape, we can always come back. What does a refuge feel like in the body? Or what would it feel like to take a refuge in this moment right now? You can use that question to just come back. It all belongs, any emotions that you might be feeling, whatever flavors of happy, sad, angry, or afraid are moving through you. The refuge comes in remembering whatever arises isn't wrong. It may be uncomfortable, it may be blissful, but it all belongs. Your own heart, so big, so open, It becomes a refuge. When we stop judging our emotional terrain and trying to curate our inner experience. The heart is a refuge. Feel into the inside of your chest. And sensing the community, the Sangha here as refuge. A safe space to experience what it means to be vitally and wholly alive together. Maybe sensing community as refuge. Belonging to community as refuge. Now sensing your awareness, becoming a little more aware of your awareness. What's aware of sounds right now? What's aware of sensations and emotions and thoughts? You don't have to find awareness, it's already here. Become aware that you are aware. As you do that, you are taking refuge in awareness itself. You don't have to try to do it, you are doing it. This is called the bright field. I have seen the sun break through to illuminate a small field for a while and gone my way and forgotten it. But that was the pearl of great price, the one field that had the treasure in it. I realize now that I must give all that I have to possess it. Life is not hurrying on to a receding future, nor hankering after an imagined past. It is the turning aside, like Moses to the miracle of the lit bush, to a brightness that seemed as transitory as your youth once, but is the eternity that awaits you. And if you haven't already, you can flutter your eyes open and just start to take in your space again. And then we can orient to each other. As we come to a landing place and a close, I would love to, what's your takeaway? What's your takeaway from our time together? Again, you can Zelle, PayPal, or Venmo me. We will be back next week. I will be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. I want to mention an offering that I have coming up in October. This is particularly for yogis. Some of you have taken the inner asana, but if you haven't taken the inner asana, it's a yin yoga intensive that, it's happening in October. It's a weekend in October, and I need to get the dates. But stay tuned for that. That's coming your way, and more information about the inner asana. The inner asana is back. It will be at Yogolution Movement inside the studio.
I want to take the yoga.
Yeah, Candace, stay tuned. Stay tuned for the inner asana. It's an intensive. It's for yoga teachers, but also for yoga enthusiasts. You don't have to be a yoga teacher.
I'll be there.
Oh, good. Yeah. Thank you, Karina, and all feeling lots of ease and love. Yes. Thank you, Karina. You're all amazing. Thanks, Steph, for being here. Please bring friends. Let's grow our Sangha. Let's grow our group, right? I'm in this for the long haul. But I'm not showing up if no one's here. So as long as you find something in this, I'm here to serve. So let's keep it going. And if you know of somebody who would be served by this, please bring them. And let's grow our community one member at a time.
I'll always be here.
Good, Melissa. Thank you, Karina. This was exactly what I needed. Thank you all. Feeling peace and refuge. Beautiful. Anna, and I'll see you later, Anna, on Zoom. Much needed. So good to see you and everyone. Yeah, it's good to see you too. And be well. I'll see you next week, if not before. All right.
I feel the refuge. Bye.
Good. I'm so glad, Candace. I love having you here. Don't forget True Refuge, Tara Brach, if you want to geek out on this topic. Great book. Great book. All right, loves, you can take yourself off mute and say goodbye. Oh, I'll see you.
Namaste.
Namaste. Blessings.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.